Hey guys, tonight we're knee-deep in brine and betrayal on the Coromandel coast, your calloused hands, sanding the last plank of a dying empire's pride. Salt crusts your lips like a lover's bitter farewell. That retreating tide isn't just seawater, it's the king's patience draining away. Let's be real, you've got a 50-50 chance of finishing this ship before the royal executioners finish you. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm weirdly into knowing whether you're watching this from a Tokyo high-rise or a Buenos Aires cybercafe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The plank warps under your palm, teakwood, resisting like a spooked stallion. You remember the Soppet crews singing as they felled ironwood trees. True story, Chola shipwrights used to measure timber by elephants' footfalls. 3 stomps meant prime grain. Your chisel whispers through resin-soaked wood, each stroke mirroring the tide's retreat. Ocean air needles your lungs, brine and rotten, coconut husks from yesterday's monsoon. Historians still argue whether the Chola Navy fell to Portuguese cannons or their own lords' salted bribes. You've got simpler problems. A single nail gleams in your apron, bronze alloyed with desperation. That mangrove root you're kneeling on, it's older than the king's lineage. 12 generations of shipwrights have cursed its knots. 13 might be your unlucky number. You wipe sweat with a rag dyed blue from forgotten hull paint, smearing cerulean streaks across your forearm. Waves hiss secrets against the exposed keel. Did you know Tamil shipbuilders used to stitch planks with coconut fiber? True, but your galleons held together by iron and audacity. The tide pool at your feet clouds, algae blooming crimson, where your blood drips from splintered palms. A seagull screeches. You glance up, mistaking it for the foreman's whistle. No one's left, just the half-carved figurehead staring with pupilless eyes. You pocket a wood curl. Maybe your grandson's toy boat will outlast this cursed project. The plank's ready. Bronze nail meets grain, one hammer strike away from glory or gutting. Your wrist trembles, not from exhaustion, from knowing this ship's maiden voyage might sink your entire bloodline. Wind slithers through the stern's latticework, a dirge played on bamboo flutes. You adjust the plank's angle by a finger's width. Perfectionism or paranoia. The North Star winks behind monsoon clouds. Celestial gossip you're too earthbound to decipher. Sand clings to your eyelashes. Low tide smells different here, like coral exhaling after centuries of shipwrecks. That salty tang, mostly sweat, the rest, regret fermenting behind your ribcage. Hammer rises and pauses, a distant drum roll. No, just monsoon thunder testing its vocal cords. Your apprentice's ghost lingers in the tar bucket's reflection. Should taught him to swim faster. Metal kisses wood. The final strike echoes across the beach, turning heads in fishing huts a league away. You slump against the hull, waiting for the universe to applaud or strike you dead. Neither happens, just the tide's wet chuckle creeping closer. Fun fact, Chola sailors believed hammering the last nail anointed you as the ship's shadow captain. Chew on that during your next meeting with HR. Your knees crack as you stand. The Galleon looms a beast birthed from your bones. Somewhere in Madurai, the king's astrologer sneezes, your fate now entwined with snot and stardust. Moonlight glints off the nailhead, a perfect sphere if you squint. You press your forehead to the wood, listening for the heartbeat of a ship that's already more corpse than conqueror. Cicadas erupt in mock celebration. The tide licks your ankles, warm as fresh blood. You count 7 waves before realizing you forgot to name her. The hull creaks beneath your palm, a living agony of soaked timber and split oakum. Moonlight slips through gaps like liquid mercury. Pooling in the hollow where 3 ribs meet, you press a shoulder against warped teak. The groan resonates through your teeth. Chola ships once ruled the Indian Ocean. Their iron dowels defied rot where nails would rust. That's the proud history, but tonight, the ribs arch like a starved beast's spine. A splintered plank juts out, you catch its edge before it falls. Should used bamboo caulking, you mutter. Historians still argue whether Tamil shipwrights preferred coconut fibers or palm husks. Doesn't matter. Your caulk's a paste of fish oil and crushed shells. Same recipe your grandfather cursed through gout-ridden teeth. The tide's out, exposing barnacle teeth, gnawing the keel. Low water reveals the emergency tiller's flaw. It's bent starboard by a finger's width. Adjusting it now would take a day's labor. High tide arrives in 7 hours. Your brass sandglass tips, counts grains in silent mockery. There's a legend about Chola galleons, whispered in dockyard taverns. They say master builders blended elephant secretions into their waterproofing. A gray paste that hardened like diamond. You rub resin between thumb and forefinger. It smells like pine tar and desperation. The moon ducks behind clouds. Sudden darkness swallows your chisel. Blind, you trace the mast notch by touch. Palm wood should flex in storms, but this beam's too green. Splinters web across its surface like cracked pottery. Someone left a mallet wedged between frames, its handle carved with lotus blossoms. A woman's touch. Your wife's. No, she'd have taken it when she left. Monsoon winds rise, rattling loose planks into a discordant lullaby. You jam an iron spike into a gap. The wood accepts it, almost gratefully. 15 nails left, 15 breaths between you and failure. The hull shudders, a sound like vertebrae cracking. Salt crusts your lips. You lick it away, tastes like yesterday's sweat and tomorrow's regret. That crooked figurehead they found off Java coast, the one they swore belonged to a Chola trader. You've seen better carvings on fishing dinghies. Tamil engineers used centerboards for stability, genius for coastal winds. You've got driftwood, palm fronds, prayers. The keel shifts again. Silt hisses through gaps beneath your boots. Another cloud passes. Moonlight returns, silver blades slicing through deck seams. You count 7 cracks wide enough to fit a copper coin, wide enough to sink a dynasty. Your knee finds a rotten plank. It collapses inward like wet sugar. Splinters bite your calf. Blood beads black in the moonlight. The galleon groans, a wet, throaty sound. A plank snaps free, plunges into the mudflats below. 7 heartbeats pass before the distant thunk echoes back. Historians still argue whether Chola captains timed depth by dropped stones. Fools, you're timing catastrophe. Wind snakes through the ribs again. The sound, like a conch shell pressed to your ear if the conch were drunk and wheezing. You smear tar over the newest crack. It bubbles, a grotesque smile. One truth survives all shipwrecks. Wood remembers. The curve of this frame, it holds the shadow of a tree that drank Bengal rains before Rome fell. Now it drinks your sweat. The sandglass drains. You don't look. Tide's whisper grows, a hungry thing, all salt and spite. Somewhere below, crabs stage a siege on the rudder. Let them. You're too busy marrying splintered wood with rusted iron. A bat flits past, wingtips brushing rigging that sags like funeral garlands. Your laugh comes out a croak. Better pilots than me left here, you tell it. The hull creaks agreement. Tar thickens in its pot. You stir it with a broken oar, watch bubbles rise and burst. One pops, spatters your forearm. The burn's almost comforting, proof you're still here, still fighting. Moon dips. Stars smear across the sky, navigation gods blinking out one by one. You drive the 14th nail. The 15th waits cold against your palm as the first wave licks the stern. The 15th nail bites. Would your final defiance against the king's decree. Monsoon winds howl beyond the bay. They say Raja Chola's fleet once surfed such storms to conquer Srivijaya. You're no emperor, just a man teaching oak to defy water. That envoy with his gilded scroll said it plain. Launch by dawn, or your grandsons will build fishing skiffs. Maybe skiffs last longer. Your chisel scrapes the figurehead's base. It's no imperial lion. Just a sea-worn hunk, some say, depicts Gunga riding a tortoise. Scholars still debate whether it's pious art or a smuggler's joke. 3 lanterns gutter, their whale oil bought with your mother's earrings. Shadows dance across the mast where your father carved protective mantras. You trace the glyphs. They're just scratches now. Some claim Tamil shipwrights inscribed Vedic math into their hulls, secret formulas for unsinkable curves. Yours has a beer stain shaped like Ceylon. Wind tears at your turban. You rewrap it, fabric stiff with old sweat. They never mention the stench in those chronicles of maritime glory. Bet Raja's admirals smelled like rosemary and power. You tar and defeat. The chisel slips, gouges a crescent into the deck. Curses won't fix it. Neither will the dung paste your apprentice swore healed wood. Kid believed every dockside myth. even the one about Viking ships, whispering to their builders. A wave slaps the stern, soaking your ankles. Tide's early. Of course. You jam the last nail into a weeping seam. Headlines from tomorrow's failure flash unbidden. Shipwright's folly sinks dynasty. Your fist meets the plank. Pain blooms red and pure. That crooked merchant sold you green timber, swore it was Malabar teak. Rot nibbles the edges like termites at a ledger. You pick resin from your beard, it snaps like burnt sugar. King of caulking, you mock yourself. The Hull Creek's agreement, somewhere up the coast, real Chola heirs launch sleek Therisati warships. Triple hulls, iron cannons, crews fed on mangoes and ambition. You've got a bent tiller and a cargo hold full of self-pity. Moonlight glints on your wedding band, still soldered to your finger after 9 years. She said you'd choose ships over suns. Laughed when you denied it. The ring's engraving reads Varuna's blessing, but the sea god favors fools. Your mallet finds a rotten beam, punches through like rice paper. Splinters rain into the bilge. 11 heartbeats pass before the plink echoes. A flawed depth check method, but that's how they did it at Corkai Harbor. Blood trickles from a fresh cut. You wipe it on the mast, an offering to forgotten gods. Historians will call this sabotage. You'll call it Tuesday. Dawn's first blush stains the horizon. The Galleon groans, a lover's tired sigh. Sailors used to bury parrot feathers in the keel for luck. You've got a seagull's toenail, found it stuck in pitch. Omen or garbage. Launch and learn. The final nail gleams, a dull bronze stub. You press it to the plank. This is where legends would have you spit a vow, swear Odin or Kshuend hears you. But your mouth's too dry. Wind shifts, carrying the brine stink of fish markets. 7 waves, then a lull. You've timed it. 1 swing. 2. The nail sinks home silent as a crypt. So this is how empires end, not with fire, but the thunk of a tired man's hammer. The tide claims the beach behind you. Ahead, a horizon stitched with storm clouds. You step back. The Galleon awaits judgment. Let historians parse your choices. Let kings tally their losses. Right now, you've got 10 minutes to find a bottle willing to christen this disaster. The marketplace reeks of turmeric, and lies you clutch 3 daggers wrapped in silk, thin as promises. Their hilts bear your great-grandfather's initials. He fought pirates with these. Now they'll buy a mast from a grifter in a coconut fiber vest. Fine ironwood. The merchant croons, his stall piled with warped timber. He palms a dagger, tests its edge with a thumbnail. 14 generations of honor balance in his sweat-slick grip. Experts think Chola traders preferred teak for masts. This splintered junk smells like pickled regret. 3 for 1. You nod, voice trapped in your ribs. His laugh rattles like copper coins in a beggar's bowl. The mast's base is pocked with wormholes, perfect for vents. He insists. You remember a folktale, masts carved from banyan tree's house, tree spirits who capsize ships. This one's likely haunted by the ghost of bad decisions. He tosses the daggers into a cedar chest They clatter like bones. Fine trade. The lie hangs between you, a spider's web glistening with dew. Midday sunbakes your neck as you drag the mast toward shore. Its weight carves a furrow in the sand. Historians still argue whether Chola shipwrights used pulleys or pure spite to hoist timber. You've got neither, just frayed rope and a prayer to whatever god handles idiots. Splinters snake up your palms. Each tug whispers fool. That merchant's laugh follows too, bouncing off coconut husks and fishermen's shacks. Bet he's already reselling your blades to some wide-eyed kid from the interior. Special price. He'll croon, teeth yellow as old ivory. The mast's crown jabs your shoulder, a cold sting through damp linen. You glimpse your reflection in a tide pool, wild eyes, salt-crusted beard. Trader's face, your father called it, the look men get when they've been skinned alive. Installing it takes hours. Each hammer strike vibrates through rotting beams. The galleon shudders like a wet dog. At least the wormholes, leaden light, call it ventilation. You snort your first joke in weeks, but the ship doesn't laugh back. Dusk paints the bay crimson. You're chewing beetle nut, spitting red streaks into the shallows when you notice the crack. It splits the mast's base, a grinning mouth. Touch it, splinters bite back. Should have checked, should have haggled, should have kept the daggers, and sailed on sheer stubbornness. That's when you see them, 3 boys on the bluff. They're reenacting the Battle of Cadillac, stick swords clacking, laughter sharp as gulls. Your fingers twitch, phantom grips on dagger, hilts long gone. You jam tar-soaked rags into the crack temporary, like every fix on this boat. If the mizzen holds through the first squall, you'll eat your turban. Funny thought almost drowns out the merchant's chuckle, still echoing in your skull. Night falls. You tighten frayed rigging, hands raw as butchered meat. The mast groans, a low, wet sound. Some say ships remember their builder's shame. If so, this one's got enough material for an epic poem. Your last lantern gutters out. Moonlight reveals the dagger's silk wrapper, snagged on a thorn bush, fluttering like a surrender flag. Grab it, stuff it in your sash. Maybe someday you'll trade it back, or burn it. Wind shifts, carries the stink of rotting squid from the docks. The mast creaks again, louder. You press your ear to its cold flank. Hear nothing but your own pulse, and far off, too, faint to be real, the clash of ancestral steel. The chisel slips, gouges your thumb instead of teak. Blood beads dark as monsoon clouds. You smear it across the helm's shadowed underside. 17 strokes to carve his name, Ravi, each letter jagged as cliffside. Sandalwood ash mixed with fish glue fills the grooves, a poor man's ink. Tide pools shimmer with dying light. Footprints from this morning's work already blurred, sand reclaiming its blank page. But the grain here drinks your secrets. Chola ships often hid builders' marks beneath pitch layers. Found one yourself last monsoon, a Tamil poem scrawled inside a 300-year-old bulkhead at Nagapattinam's docks. You press your palm over the name. Fresh resin warms beneath skin. Some claim ships built during low tide sink faster. Nonsense, peddled by lazy carpenters scared of night work. Still, the almanac warned against launch dates divisible by 7. Today's the 14th. Do the math. A fishing net snags on the prow, strands clinging like desperate fingers. You slice it free, translucent shrimp skitter across the deck, one bold enough to nip your toe. Brave little idiot, you mutter. Survive the gulls, we'll talk. 3 coconut shells float past, arranged in a perfect triangle. Omen or litter, depends how much beetle nut you've chewed. Historians still argue whether Chola navigation charts used star maps or just copied drunk sailors' doodles. Your sextants, a notched stick, and gut instinct works well enough. The name, will he ever see it? You asked the rice merchant's wife to teach him letters, paid in carpentry repairs. Last week, she showed you his shaky charcoal scrawl. Appa, 4 years old and already writing ghosts. Footsteps crunch behind you, you spin, chisel raised. Just a feral cat dragging a mullet carcass. Its glare accuses, thief. Fair enough. You toss it the shrimp. Night falls sticky as fig sap, etching the final stroke. You inhale linseed oil and impending rain. That crack in the mast still grins, now stuffed with palm fibers and false hope. Tools scatter the deck, each rust spot a testament to borrowed time. 23 days since the king's ultimatum. Or is it 24? Moonlight bleaches the wood grain. You trace the letters Ravi and imagine waves wearing them smooth over decades. Shipworms will feast here long after your bones reef the shallows. Funny, they'll digest your son's name before he learns to spell it. Dawn leaks across the bay. You chuck a coconut at the mast. It bounces off with a hollow thunk. Seabirds seize the offering, shrieking. Their wings cast flickering shadows over the name. Now just another scar in the timber. You wade into receding surf, ankles kissed by fleeing brine. The keel emerges, a warped spine beneath your failing masterpiece. Carpenters once swore by wooden pegs, monsoon-resistant, unlike iron's crimson betrayal. Your ship weeps rust through every nail hole. Low tide reveals the tilt 3 finger widths off true. Correcting it demands dismantling half the portside. And 3 days you've already sacrificed to fever dreams. An old dockmaster's rhyme whispers through your headache. Starboard for luck, port for the damned. Too late now. 2 crabs clash over a barnacle cluster, their duel mirrored in your hammer's hesitant arc. Historians still argue whether Chola's shipyards failed from stolen timber or timid sails under pampered kings. Your hands dig into silt, cold and gritty as a treasurer's smile. 17 ropes anchor the mast's illusion of straightness. You counted twice. Dawn light carves shadows that accuse. Crooked, weak. Scholars suggest Chola navigators used monsoon winds like chess masters. But you're praying the southeast breeze ignores your sins. 3 missing planks float nearby, retreating tides, parting gift. You salvage them. The once splintered edge resembles your marriage contract. The almanac warned against lunar twins this month, a myth, surely. Yet the keel's angle mocks you, same slant as a liar's handwriting. Your wedge slips, strikes true only on the 5th try. Blisters burst, saltwater baptism, for sins of poor craftsmanship. 16th century manuals prescribed honeyed wine for cracked masts. You settle for backwash from yesterday's rice brew. Tide's first returning wave licks your heel warm and taunting. You drive a shim into the gap, holds for 3 breaths before splintering. No time for do-overs. Historians will praise your ambition or blame your haste. Either way, the seabed's hungry. A hermit crab commandeers your abandoned, which new home clutched tight. Let it have the damn thing. You're building for larger predators now. Your calloused fingers fumble with the mainstay rope, its hemp fibers frayed into blonde wisps. 3 days since the carpenter drowned. 4 since anyone answered your shouts. Workers fled like shorebirds before a squall, leaving only their stink in the sails. You recall Sultan Quip's navy, using 12-strand coconut ropes. Historians still debate whether it prevented mutinies or just bankrupted the docks. The pulley groans, misaligned wheels screeching like a widowed macaque. Your grip slips, rope burns stripe your palm. A folk remedy whispers through the pain. Bengal sailors swore by mashed banana leaves and turtle fat. But you smear yesterday's congee instead. Sticky starch binds skin to hemp, a temporary truce. Midday sun throws the deck's skeleton across the sand's ribs of a beached leviathan. You haul another plank, single-handed. The wood still reeks of the Malabar. Forests they clear-cut for this folly. 3 knots refuse to hold, until you sacrifice a belt buckle as a makeshift clamp. Rats scatter from the hold, their nests disturbed after weeks of respectful silence. A tern perches on the splintered mast, head cocked in avian judgment. Hire help, it seems to chirp. You hurl a shrimp shell, missing by 3 spans. Monsoon winds rattle the unfurled lateen sail, its stitches unspooling like the king's forgotten promises. 14th century Chola logbooks recommended lunar phase launchings. But tonight's moon looms pregnant and judgmental. Your knife nicks the anchor chain, releasing a shower of orange rust. The links clank like drunken temple bells. 1/3 of the rigging remains slack, sagging where crew hands should tighten it. You invent curses in Tamil and trade dialect, then swallow them when salt coats your tongue. Shadows stretch into blade-sharp lines, the sun abandoning you to advancing tide. 3 gulls fight over a dried squid, their shrieks morphing into the drowned carpenter's last gargled warning. You press seawater to your temples, cold shock against the pounding. Expert shipwrights once debated whether keel angles should mirror dolphin spines, but you're past such niceties. The last furl of canvas snaps taut, nearly taking your thumb. Blood wells black in the crease of your nail. A splintered oar becomes a makeshift lever. You heave until vertebrae pop. The hull shifts inch by grudging inch, into something resembling seaworthiness, or a coffin. Hard to tell now. 3 crabs emerge, scuttling sideways across the deck like cautious inspectors. You lob a barnacle at them, watching it arc into the surf. High tide licks the rudder testing. Tomorrow's launch looms, a marriage of hope and certain disaster. Your blistered hands cradle a salvaged figurehead fragment, its carved eye still accusing. Night falls with a seabird's final screech. You slump against the mainmast, splinters biting your spine. The stars offer no navigation, only white-hot reminders of tasks unfinished. Tomorrow, the ocean claims either this ship or you. No third option whispers through the rigging tonight. Dawn leaks through cracks in the storm shutters, a sickly yellow bruise on the horizon. You brace against the forecastle, waiting for monsoon rains that never strike. Clouds clot the sky, swell with theatrical menace, then disperse like courtiers snubbing a beggar. Records claim Chola Shipwright's timed launches to beetle nut ripeness. But your mouth holds only iron dust grit. The mainsail sags, its indigo dye bleeding into hemp fibers. Historians still argue whether those bold hues warded off rot or just royal vanity. A Fujian merchant once swore cobalt threads repelled barnacles. You gambled 3 silver armbands on that lie. Wind plucks at loose rigging, creating a phantom cruise hum. It almost sounds like the work chants from Mahabalipuram's docks, until a snapped halyard cracks like a gunshot. Your knees hit the deck, palms skidding across planks still sticky with last week's tar. Raindrops tease, 8 fat splatters on your nape, then nothing. Monsoons toy with you like a cat, pawing a half-dead mouse. You chuck a rusted hatchet at the clouds. It cartwheels into the bay without a splash. Low tide exposes the starboard strakes, their caulking oozing like infected wounds. 17 generations of shipwrights whisper criticisms in your pounding temples. That eccentric Dutch trader swore salted cricket antennas predicted storms. Maybe you shouldn't have laughed while burning his pamphlet. Noon sun bakes the deck into a griddle. You swipe sweat using a torn corner of the king's inspection scroll. The wax seal softens into a mockery of tears. 3 speckled eggs balance in the crow's nest. A naughty turn's abandoned insurance policy. The banked monsoon wind dies, leaving sails flaccid as a drunkard's promises. You taste copper coins where your molar cracked yesterday. 18th century CE Porcher's logs describe monsoon surges lifting ships over reef spines. But those captains had crews and charts and functional rudders. Twilight brings a false chill, the kind that creeps under your nails. You count 674 pegs hammered since dawn, each thunk a protest against physics. That Marseille tar you traded for turns darker than a treasurer's soul when baked. Stars emerge, Orion's belt cinched tight over the listing mast. A historian in Mylapore once told you Chola celestial maps included ghost constellations. Now you see their logic. The sky mocks with patterns only the drowned understand. Midnight wind riffles the jib, a skeletal finger beckoning toward open water. Your last lamp gutters out, but not before revealing the carpenter's waterlogged toolkit under a rat's nest. Bronze calipers gleam dully, still set to his exact handspan. You slump against the capstan, its iron teeth biting your shoulder. Low tide sucks at the hull, 9 more hours till launch, or low tide claims the bay, 9 more hours till failure. The math tastes the same either way. A gecko scuttles across the figurehead's chipped brow, temporary ruler of this decaying kingdom. Your blistered thumb traces the hull's ochre whorls. Paint your great-grandfather called the color of obeyed kings. It flakes off like dried blood. Dawn's first light reveals the truth, rigging slack, bilge pumps clogged with oysters. The monsoon's absence feels personal now. You spit into the wind and start counting pegs again. Dawn peels back the tide's gray curtain. There they are. 7 bronze hammers glinting in the silt like teeth. Your breath hitches, not at the theft, but the stamp on each handle. A stylized heron with a broken wing, old Maniacara's sigil. That rivalry died when his workshop burned in 23. Or so you'd hoped. Mud squelches between your toes as you wade toward the tools. 17th century CE shipyard logs obsess over tool marks, proof of craftsmanship, or future evidence. You have to hammer. Its head still bears flecks of that cursed crimson lacquer from Pondicherry. Historians still argue whether the Chola Guild's heron stamp represented skill or marked vessels destined to sink. The nearest hammer's handle oozes rancid fish oil, rust deterrent, or spiteful marinade. Your thumb rubs the heron's mangled wing and comes away smeared with lampblack. Classic Maniacara, always the dramatic exit. You wonder if he's watching, probably perched in some coconut tree, laughing like a lunatic. Low tide air smells of split kelp and pettiness. 6 paces upstream, a child's sandal sticks upright in the muck. Mongolera ship inventories list deliberate tool burials to curse rivals, but this feels personal. These hammers weren't hidden, they're staged, displayed. A middle finger carved in bronze. Sunlight hits the bay, turning hammer shadows into skeletal fingers pointing. Where? Back to your hull, toward the smuggling coves. You pocket 2 hammers, their weight uneven against your thigh. That Edo period guidebook claimed stolen tools, retained prior owner's resentment. But your bigger problem is splinters. A fiddler crab emerges, gripping a strand of caulking hemp like a tiny lawyer. You flick it, a briny crumb from your sash. Go negotiate with Maniacara, you mutter. The crab retreats, dragging its loot into a bubble-filled hole. Footprints circle the exposed keel, narrow heels, splayed toes. Not Maniacara's gait. His apprentice, deceased uncle. You press a palm into the deepest print. It weeps seawater. Maybe they walked here underwater. A talent your cousins swore Kerala pearl divers possessed. Wind shifts, carrying the reek of overripe jackfruit from the east. You brace for another memory. But it's just the hammock you forgot to burn last week. 7 nail heads wink from the hull, each slightly crooked. You told the king's inspector it's an anti-tsunami pattern. He nodded like a cobra counting prayers. The stolen hammer's bronze feels colder than the tide. Tudor shipyards heated tools in sacred fires. To purify intent, you'd settle for a camp stove. Your last match snaps, then catches. Flame licks the hammer's neck, revealing a hairline crack. Maniacara's final joke, giving you broken leverage. Midday sun turns the bay into a salt-crusted mirror. You hold a hammer aloft. Its shadow falls across the figurehead's missing eye. There's symbolism here, or heat stroke. 18th century merchants believed borrowed tools carried their previous project's souls. If true, these hammers remember 3 shipwrecks and a really ugly armoire. Sand crabs pour from a burrow, swarming over the remaining tools. Their claws click against bronze, a deranged percussion section. You lob a barnacle, they scatter, leaving one brave soldier riding a hammerhead. Tell Maniacara his 6-8 times signature sucks. You growl. Tide's first returning wave kisses your ankles, an icy reprimand. 9 hours, till launch, maybe 8, till the hammers rust solid. You bury 3 tools under a cairn of oyster shells. Let Maniacara's ghost dig. The rest clank in your satchel, each step jangling like a cracked bell choir. By the stern post, Tidrack reveals a sodden scroll wedged between rocks. Maniacara's handwriting loops across mildewed parchment, a cargo manifest, love poem. You skim waterlogged lines, but where the cedar from Cove 7 too late. That cedar became your mast, and currently lists 3 degrees starboard. A turn drops a mackerel spine near your heel, either an offering or avian critique. You crunch through it, the sound echoing off the hull. 16th century carpenters wore fishbone charms to absorb project hatred. Maybe this counts. Shadows stretch, your silhouette merges with the figureheads. The heron-stamped hammer warms in your grip, or maybe your palms just festering. You drive an exploratory nail, the bronze shudders, holds. Maniacara's sabotage fails this time. Moonrise stains the silt platinum. You place the last hammer on the tidal flat, handle pointing seaward. Old Goa fishermen swore tools left this way haunted their takers. Let Maniacara's ghost blunder into that trap. The tide claims the hammer, inch by inch, as you walk away counting splinters in your palm. Resin smoke coils around your wrists, thick and amber, as you press the caulking iron into the seam. It's too hot, like that morning in Mylapore, flames licking varnished teak, apprentices' shouts swallowed by crackling beams. Your thumb finds a scar under your jaw, a souvenir from hauling Sahir through the window. His charred notebook still stains your dreams with half-formed hull diagrams. Mangrove bark smolders in the brazier. Egyptian shipbuilders used papyrus ash for waterproofing. But you'll settle for what's at hand. A bead of resin drips, hardening midair before it hits the deck. 17th century Surat workshops buried their plans in ceramic jars. During monsoon season, precious scrolls armored against rot and rival torches. You never tried that. Arrogance has a flavor. It tastes like burnt honeycomb. The caulk gun jams, rusty spring snapping back like a scorpion's tail. Your chuckle sounds hollow. That fire inspector in Nagapatnam's swore workshops collapsed from spontaneous resin combustion. But you saw the oil-soaked rags flung through the windows. Historians still argue whether the Chola Shipwright's guild enforced safety codes or just bribed local officials to look away. Wind shifts. You catch a whiff of jasmine amid the smoke. Amu always wore it in her hair right until she started wearing a widow's white. The memory clogs your throat worse than the fumes. Resin bubbles. You stir it with a bayou cypress paddle claimed from a Portuguese trader. An odd choice. But then, Chesapeake boat builders swore by sassafras wood for glue paddles. Quirky, but effective. 3 gaps remain starboard bow, where the keel meets sternpost, that cursed knot beneath the figurehead. Your palm hovers over the hottest resin pot, skin tingling. Manila Galleon crews believed Burns sealed a shipwright's bond with their vessel. If true, your arms should glow like temple lamps. A seagull lands, pecking at dried tar. You flick a wood chip its way. Tell the guild assessors I'm still breathing. It squawks, dropping a mangled starfish onto your anvil. You almost miss Sahir's terrible jokes. He'd call this an auspicious seafood inspection. Smoke stings your eyes. Or maybe it's the memory of Rajiv's cough during his final asthma attack. Should have sent him to his aunt. Should have built better ventilation. Should have. The resin cools too fast. You relight the brazier with a shredded ledger page. Flames consume last quarter's expenses, including 3 entries for fire suppression powders. Irony singes your nostrils. Midnight chill creeps in, tightening the fresh caulk into jagged ridges. You smooth them with a whalebone spatula. Inuit hunters traded it for a copper flask years ago. Odd, but their sealant techniques work better than Bengaluru's modern epoxy. The last gap accepts the resin grudgingly, seeping into wood like a confession. Dawn's first light reveals your reflection in the hardening amber, a gaunt face webbed with soot and regrets. Shipwrights of Toulon wrote secret messages in their caulk lines, prayers hidden under a century of barnacles. Your fingertip etches Sahir's initials, then scrapes them away. Better forgotten. A wave slaps the hull the resin holds. Your knees sink into the sand, still warm from yesterday's spiteful sun. Somewhere beneath this beach, your workshop's foundation stones gather barnacles. Let them. You pat the caulked seam, stickiness clinging like a child's hand. You wipe resin from your palms. Hooves crunch the gravel path. The king's envoy arrives astride a silver-striped stallion. His turban pin gleams, a cabochon emerald large enough to ransom a port. You brace against the hull, Pray the morning's cock holds its lie. Progress. His voice carries the bored lilt of courtiers who've never gripped a mallet. 17th century Chola inspection. Logs mention envoys carrying sandalwood rulers to measure plank gaps. But this one eyes your work like a vulture circling carrion. You force a grin. Seaworthy by monsoon's first rain, Excellency. He dismounts, boots sinking into damp sand. A jade-handled dagger sways at his hip, ceremonial, yet sharp enough to slit doubts. Histories claim envoys tested hulls by pouring mustard oil into seams. If it leaked, the shipwright's hands were forfeit. Your pulse quickens. He produces no oil, just a scornful sniff. The inspection begins, a pantomime of scrutiny. Fingertips graze warped wood where termites feasted last winter. You hold your breath, fine-grained teak, he mutters, though the timbers from a bribed merchant stockpile. 3 pelicans flap overhead, their shadows dappling the envoy's embroidered cape. Perhaps acceptable, a wave slaps the shore, timed like the gods' own comic relief. Historians still argue whether these visits validated craftsmanship or simply lined royal coffers with expediting fees. Your gold ring, a week's wages, vanishes into his palm with practiced sleight of hand. His smirk widens, a gift for the king's new flagship, no doubt. When his retinue retreats, you count the remaining planks. 17, 14, 12. The envoy's perfume lingers narrowly and deceit. Some claim Chola ships used lacquer made from crushed beetle wings. But your mix of fish oil and pine sap glistens just as fine. Another lie curring in the sun. A rogue nail pricks your heel. You bite back a curse. Tomorrow brings the masts raising, and 100 more lies to lacquer smooth. The Galleon groans a coffin. No, not if you can still taste burnt honeycomb instead of salt water. You kneel to inspect the keel. His shadow looms again. This tilt, the envoy purrs, tracing the uneven line with a silk-gloved finger. Your spine stiffens. 13th century Tamil manuals dictated precise angles for monsoon voyages. But manuals don't account for warped lumber scavenged at midnight. An optical illusion, Excellency. The beach slopes. He hums, unconvinced. From his sleeve slides a slender scroll, a checklist penned in vermilion ink. 24 items, each more trivial than the last. Regulation, peg spacing. You point to the hull's starboard side. Adjusted yesterday. A lie, but the pegs exist. Mostly. Wind tugs his turban cloth, revealing a crescent-shaped scar. Sailors gossip whispers that envoys receive those during loyalty tests involving scorpions and beetle leaves. You don't ask. Instead, you offer sugarcane wine from a dented flask. He declines, but pockets the flask. The sun climbs your sweat beads where the caulk still sticks. You recall a Rajaraja Iyer decree. Shipwrights could be fined for excessive perspiration sullying royal timber. Absurd. Yet you wipe your brow on a hemp rag anyway. The envoy scribbles notes, his quill scratching like termites in dry wood. At midday, his scribe presents a parchment, 19 required modifications in florid script. None address the hull's soft spots or the cracked mast wedged in the dunes. Your smile aches. Of course, Excellency. All will be rectified. He knew hill tribes who painted their ships with goat's blood to appease inspectors. Maybe you should have tried that. His stallion whinnies, eager to depart. The envoy mounts, adjusts his brocade sash. 3 days, he says, though the monsoon clouds massing westward suggest 2. Historians still argue whether Chola assessors genuinely delayed launches for safety or to extort last-minute bribes. You bow low, sand gritting between your teeth. As hooves fade, you kick the nearest support beam. The hull shudders, but holds. 17th century Surat traders floated half-built ships using bamboo pontoons, a trick you'd kill for now. Instead, you chip at the warped planks, each splinter a silent insult to the envoy's ignorance. Dusk brings the tide and an unexpected visitor. A mongoose darts from the rocks, clutching a stolen quail egg. It pauses, beady eyes assessing your work. You toss a wood shaving. Tell the guild I'm charming inspectors now. It hisses, then vanishes into the mangroves. Night falls. You relight the brazier with pages from the envoy's ridiculous scroll. Flames consume words like aesthetic symmetry and deck ornamentation guidelines. The heat warms your face, though it does nothing for the chill in your chest. By dawn, 4 more planks lie secured. The envoy's scarlet wax seal glows on the sand, trampled underfoot. You press it into the last caulk line, a petty rebellion. Let him find that during the next inspection. If you live that long, a fishing boat glides past, its crew eyeing the galleon. One man makes a warding sign against evil. You spit into the waves. Superstition won't sink this ship. Only your own lies can do that. Maybe. The resin pot's empty. The hull gleams under a lacquer of half-truths. You trace the figurehead's snarling lion muzzle, its jade, eyes long gone. A substitute pendant warms your throat. A child's copper amulet shaped like a carp. It'll have to do. High tide whispers promises against the bow. You test the gangplank, it creaks, but doesn't buckle. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the envoy doubtless sips fermented coconut wine from your flask. Let him choke on it. Your chisel hesitates, then etches a single Tamil glyph into the transom. Not your name, not a prayer, just a mark that says survived. The nearest wave licks it away, salt water blurring truth, and lie into something that might float. Waves erase your carved glyph, salt water dissolving defiance into the hull's patina. A hermit crab scuttles over your boot, its borrowed shell gleaming like lacquered armor. 17th century Tamil shipwrights sometimes ground crab shells into waterproofing paste, though you doubt that's why this one studies your bowed head with stalked eyes. The tide pool at your feet mirrors the galleon's warped prow, a jagged silhouette against seagull-speckled sky. Historians still argue whether curved bows evolved from coastal fish or scavenged Portuguese caravels. You hawk a blob of beetle spit, watch it sink into the reflection. Neither theory helps now. The crab retreats, its spiral-shaped home bumping against barnacled rocks. You freeze. That coiled curve, could it slice through waves better than your splintered design? Your knuckle traces the air, mimicking the shell's arc. Some Malay sailors swore crabs walked northwest at dawn, using Earth's magnetism as a compass. Madness, but your chisel already twitches toward fresh timber. Sawdust snows into the shallows as you heave a warped plank ashore. The envoy's scroll demanded dragonhead prow ornamentation. Your spluttering laugh scares an egret. Dragon scales resemble fish. Fish resemble cartilage. Cartilage crumbles. But this, you snap the crab's discarded husk. Note how each segment overlaps. 9th century, Pallava coins depicted ships with turtle shell prows. Though no scholar cares, except that tipsy professor you once bedded in Mammalaparum, your adze bites into wood, shaving a trial curve. Low tide gurgles, exposing black rocks like rotten teeth. 3 more hours till the sea reclaims your workspace. Your new prow takes shape, a hybrid of crustacean and desperation. Will it hold? Your father's ghost mutters about respecting original designs. But father never faced a monsoon deadline with termite-riddled lumber. A fissure cracks open mid-carve, threatening to split the timber. You press a palm against the breach, hot sap oozes over your burn scars. 13th century repair manuals recommended stuffing gaps with hemp and bee spit. But you jam in coconut husk fragments instead. Sacrilege or salvation. The crab returns, circling your ankle twice before darting seaward. You follow its path, notice how the waves part around its shell. Rigging creaks overhead, a mocking chorus. Your chisel flies faster, rough curves becoming smooth, desperate guesswork, hardening into intention. By high tide's first silver tongues, the new prow arches skyward, a crustacean's defiant curl. You drag the piece toward the galleon, heels gouging trenches in wet sand. Salt crusts your lashes. Blinking reveals the envoy's stallion grazing on dune grass. Hallucination. The horse snorts, unimpressed. Mounting the prow demands ropework your blistered hands can't endure. You loop braided hibiscus fibers around a rock, using the rising tide's pull as a makeshift pulley. Clever, if the fibers hold. 11th century dock records mention coconut cordage snapping under strain. But those sailors weren't fueled by 4 days without sleep. Wood groans, seaweed pops, the prow slots into place. For 3 trembling breaths, it holds, then creaks downward, skewing left. You plunge into chest-high waves to shove it straight. Icy water shocks your ribs. Memories of the envoy's smirk keep you lunging deeper. Muscles scream, tide fights your every adjustment. That crab watches from a nearby rock, judging. Should thanked it with a shrimp offering, if you had any shrimp or offerings. Dawn's first light glints off your reshaped bow, a jagged mockery of Chola elegance. Perfect. Let the envoy scribble his complaints while monsoon waves test this desperate geometry. You collapse onto soaked sand, breath hitching in time with the surf. The hermit crab sidles onto your outstretched palm, its claws tap dancing over calluses. Approved, you wheeze. It retreats into its shell, which is answer enough. Somewhere beyond the horizon, thunder rumbles. The true inspector approaches. The anchor chain bites your palms, rusted fangs, rejecting freedom. Each heave ratchets the links tighter, your father's ghost, adding weight to every link. 13th century Tamil riggers boiled coconut oil into a slick paste for stubborn metal. But you've only got spit and spite. A wave slams the hull, salt spray coats the chains in a brittle glaze. Your boots skid on seaweed-slimed decking. Historians still argue whether Chola anchors symbolized imperial stability or the crushing grip of coastal taxes. You'd vote both if your lungs weren't busy cursing. 3 tugs, 5, 9. The chain vomits a blackened shackle onto your toes. Thanks, you wheeze, imagining your father's laughter echoing in the corroded iron. Some Madurai fishermen still sing about an anchor chain that grew pearls, though you suspect that's just barnacle poetry. Moonlight glints off the exposed metal, revealing crude etchings. Your thumbnail traces a half-scraped Tamil numeral 97, a crewman's tally of ports or victims. The chain jerks, almost taking your finger. Priorities. You brace against the capstan muscles, screaming in dialects of pain. 17th century Dutch invaders described Chola ships as ghosts with iron jaws, right before those jaws sank them. The metaphor feels less romantic now. One final lunge, the anchor breaks free with a wet belch. Momentum slams you backward into a coil of rotten rope. The chain races seaward, whistling like a pissed-off cobra. For 3 heartbeats, silence, then a distant clang as iron meets reef. The sound curdles your blood. Anchors were never meant to strike stone, only sand. A taboo as old as monsoon winds, and twice as superstitious. Your father's voice slithers from the bilge. Stupid girl reefs are Nagini's vertebrae. You throw a rust flake at the sound. It plinks into darkness. Maybe the legends were right about drowned snake gods, maybe not. Either way, you're committed. Dawn leaks across the deck, revealing the chain's truth. Frayed cables, split links, corrosion blooming like lotus flowers. You count 7 salvageable meters, enough to reach soft seabed if the tide cooperates. If a seagull lands on the anchor stock, its head cocked in avian judgment. Bring me better news, you growl, tossing a wood chip. It squawks, drops a fish spine, flies off. Marine oracles are overrated. Sweat drips onto the capstan, hissing against salt-rotten wood. You remember the shipwright's maxim. Anchors hold fleets, but patience holds empires. 2 bad patients evaporated with yesterday's drinking water. The chain's jagged end mocks your blisters, each link a miniature betrayal. Some Kerala blacksmiths still forge replacement anchors using 8th century molds, their bellows stoked with tamarind husks. You've got driftwood and desperation, same thing, right? As you lash planks into a makeshift splicer, monsoon winds test the knots. Your father's ghost materializes beside the rail, water dribbling from his spectral beard. Disgraceful, he mutters, gesturing at your jury-rigged repair. You'd prefer sinking. You snap, sawing through a knotted cord. He fades, taking the smell of old incense with him. Family reunions, always a delight. High tide arrives, foam nibbling at the hull's blistered paint. You feed the spliced chain into the murk, praying the reef hasn't sharpened its teeth. The links slither, catch hold. For now, salt crusts your eyebrows, gluing stray hairs into crispy arches. You scrape it off, a poor man's crown for a poorer shipwright. The gull returns, dropping a clamshell at your feet. Payment's payment. Nightfall brings cold, and the anchor chain's song. Each wave makes it hum, a drugged cobra's lullaby. You stroke the frayed hemp, wondering if Dutch sailors heard this melody before sleeping eternally. The answer drifts out on the tide, unanswered, as always. Your knuckles whiten around the sextant, its brass edges biting into calloused flesh. The Southern Cross dances. Or is that just your trembling hands? 8th century Chola charts mapped these stars with crushed pearl ink. But your map's a sweat-smeared scrap of palm leaf. Agastia's star winks mockingly, that celandine betrayer of monsoons past. Old deckhands swore its glow could pickle a captain's brains. Yours certainly feels brine-soaked. You squint. Is the mast's shadow creeping left or surrendering right? Historians still argue whether Tamil navigators used star alignments or just followed monsoon hiccups. Tonight, you'd believe either. A wave slaps the hull, the deck tilts, stars smear into silver gruel. Your forehead thunks against the mast. Steady, you mutter mostly to yourself. 13th century riggers used turtle-shell astrolabes, but you've got a splitting headache and sheer bloody-mindedness. Same difference. The quadrant slips, bronze edges kiss your thumbnail, a constellation bleeds across the sky, or maybe that's exhaustion's inkblot test. You realign the sighting pin. Does Sirius dip lower than last night? Or are you just lower? Someone chuckles. You whirl, the deck's empty. That laugh, your old navigation master's wheeze, still haunting you like monsoon rot. He'd beat your knuckles for fumbling the dog star's angle. 7 degrees. Girl, measure with your bones, not your eyes. A pelican crashes into the rigging, wings thrashing in drunken panic. Feathers snow down as it escapes, leaving one piss-warm egg in the ratlins. You pocket it. Breakfast or future projectile. The mast creaks, a wooden yawn in the stillness. Your plumb line swings lazy circles, mocking every textbook diagram. Chola sailors supposedly navigated by tasting salt winds. You try it and get a mouthful of gull dander. Laughter again, closer now. Your father's ghost leans against the capstan kelp, dangling from his spectral earlobe. 2 degrees off, he tuts, pointing at Rigel's shimmering smear. Your mother steered straighter, and she feared open water. She feared you. You snap, adjusting the quadrant. His grin dissolves into starlight, taking the memory's sting with him. Dawn's first blush taints the horizon, pink as a smuggler's silks. Your calculations swim, numbers wriggling like eels in lamp oil. 1 vertical inked mark claims north, another swears it's south. A Tamil poet once wrote that stars are the gods' torn up love letters. Right now, you'd burn the whole mailbox. The mast groans a basso profundo warning. You press your ear to the wood, feel vibrations humming through rotted timbers. 17 generations of shipwrights whisper, align, trust, pray, but which voice belongs to the stars, and which to the sawdust in your skull? A shooting star carves the sky. You flinch like it's aimed at your forehead. Fishermen say falling stars are Vishnu's lost chess pieces. You're just glad none hit the rigging. Your plumb line snaps. The lead weight plunges into black waves. Fine, you tell the hungry ocean keep it. The mast tilts another impossible degree, or maybe the world does. By noon tomorrow you'll know. By dusk, the king's envoy will. For now, you clamp the sextant to your chest and let the stars lie. The rigging hums, a chorus of hemp and hauntings. Your blistered fingers find the frayed ratlins, each knot alive with phantom vibrations. 13th century Tamil ships bound their masts with coconut coir rough fibers that outlasted empires. These ropes feel different, scratchy with secrets, sticky with old regrets. A falsetto whine curls down from the crow's nest, no moon to reveal its source. You tighten a slipped loop, the whisper unravels, then reforms 3 ropes left. Old salts swore singing in high sea could calm typhoons. Sounds like these ghosts missed the memo. Left brace haul, hisses the wind through the stays. The command is Tamil, pure coastal dialect, swallowed by the Bay of Bengal centuries back. Your hands obey, hauling lines that pull taut against nothing. Historians still argue whether rigging chants were work songs or smuggled war codes. Right now, it's just bad karaoke. Something tugs back. You freeze, ropes twitching like spider silk in a draft. The mast creaks, a long groan ending in something like a chuckle. Chola seafarers buried coconut amulets in their ratlins to repel demons. You've got half a beetle nut and sheer annoyance. Nice try, you mutter, yanking the line hard enough to skin your palms. The phantom tension snaps, releasing a shower of iridescent beetles from the rigging. They skitter across the deck, carapaces glinting like malachite. You crush one underfoot, it pops, with a sea stink even gulls would hate. The whispers surge, a dozen voices tangled in the braces. Stow the jib, reef before dawn. Capper resin in the aft hold. You recognize the last voice, the ship's vanished quartermaster. His advice saved you during the squall off Pambin, back when crewmates still had faces. Now his wisdom spills from empty air directions to a resin stash that rotted decades ago. A jute line snakes around your wrist, cold as a widow's ring. You slice it with your belt knife, but the fibers stitch themselves back. 8th century riggers mixed horsehair into ropes for luck. This feels more like a hex. The wind shifts, brings a sickly jasmine scent. Ghosts don't sweat bergamot oil, but traders do. Your missing first mate's cologne clings to the ratlins, cloying and unmistakable. Historians theorize mutineers used rigging knots as secret ledgers, each twist tallying stolen gold. You count 8 new loops, hope they're worth his noose. 2 block-end tackles collide, wooden pulleys clacking like rabid castanets. You lunge, catch the main halyard before it whips overboard. Straining biceps meet phantom resistance, a deadweight dangling from the rope's end. They say hanged men swing forever in the ratlins. This one's got a grip, like monsoon tides. Let go, you barnacled bastard. The resistance vanishes. You crash into the capstan. A child's giggle ripples through the shrouds, high and cruel. Fishermen's tailies warn of drowned boys clinging to anchor chains. This feels meaner. Salt crusts your split lip, tastes like vengeance, served lukewarm. You spit blood onto the deck, watch it skitter toward the scuppers. 13 sailors vanished on this ship's maiden voyage, each taking a section of rigging to their graves. Now their whispers thicken, seeping into hemp, until the ropes buzz with unfinished business. The mast sways not from wind, but something climbing. Higher, higher, invisible feet denting, wood older than your grandfather's grudges. The crow's nest rattles leases a single frayed command. Reef mainsail. Reef this, you snap, whipping a marlin spike into the darkness. It clangs off the mast, dislodges a rusted shackle. The impact echoes, or is that clapping? 7 hollow applause, like palms slapping wet timber. Dawn limps closer, the horizon blushing like a drunkard's nose. Your knife finds the mainsheet, sawing through centuries of layered knots. Tamil shipwrights believed unraveled ropes released trapped souls. You just need 10 minutes of quiet. The cordage snaps, recoiling with a hiss that could skin a cat. Silence follows, thick and heavy as lowered shrouds. Even the beetles pause their glinting retreat, antennae quivering in relief. You check the wind vane, still broken, but the air feels lighter. From the scuppers, a last whisper, "Smart girl." You bury the blade in the deck, a period to the sentence. Let historians debate celestial navigation. Every real sailor knows ghosts hate a good punchline. Your knees hit the deck before your mind registers buckling, fever sweat gluing your tunic to warped planks. Tar fumes swim in your lungs, each breath a sticky RAS air. 13th century shipwrights boiled cashew oil into sealant. Smells like your skulls, cooking the same brew. A beetle skitters over your thumb, iridescent shell, mocking your dulled reflexes. You flick it into the scupper's miss. The horizon curdles, Dawn light bleeding into the rigging like spoiled milk. Blink, the masts double, quadruple Chola galleons supposedly sailed with triple masts. History never mentioned the fourth. Up, you slur, but your legs trade places with the sky. Planks kiss your cheek salty and splintered. Fishermen claim low tide exposes shipwreck's ribs. Right now, it's exposing your spine's mutiny. Something cold nudges your temple, the ocean's tongue lapping the gunwale. Finish. It hisses, voice textured like barnacles scraping bone. Your shaking hand fumbles for the nail apron, 7 bronze spikes clinking like broken promises. One short. Always one short. A chuckle rattles your teeth, yours, your father's. Ghosts blur with fever now, memories of him, hammering monsoon-swollen. Planks resurface. The rhythm syncopated with Tamil docking chants. Historians still argue whether those songs mapped secret trade routes. They definitely map the throbbing behind your eyes. You crawl toward the prow, elbows dragging through cold puddles. Ship rats scatter their claws, scritching Morse code insults. A Vastu Shastra manual warned builders never to lay keels during fever moons. Too bad you burned that text for warmth 3 nights back. The missing nail winks at you from a cracked deck joint, taunting. Bronze was reserved for king's ships. Your smuggled ingots cost 2 molars and a daughter's dowry. The spike glows, or is that the fever? 16th century sutras mention solar nails forged in eclipse fire. You trade eternity for a hammer swing. Almost got salt crust cracks between your fingers as you claw upright. Vision swims. The ship's figurehead sneers. A half-carved lion dissolving into lotus petals. Myth says Chola artisans soaked figureheads in goat blood for luck. This one drank yours. The nail resists rusty socket, hugging its shaft like a jealous lover. You pound with a stone miss, strike thumb. Copper blood beads match the dawn horizon. 3 Tamil kings died from infected splinters. You wish the lesson felt less practical. Exhaustion vomits up a laugh. Should been a damn spice merchant. Your joke dies as the ocean slurps it clean. Rest, whispers the tide, but rest is for unhaunted men. The final nail screams into wood, a metallic shriek that silences the gulls. 17th century Dutch traders wrote of screaming ships, never guessing the soundtrack was just desperation hammered into boards. You collapse, cheek pressed to the trembling hull. Somewhere beneath the Thames, divers still find Mogul-era nails clenched in skeleton hands. Tonight, you're the punchline to their cautionary tale. Sleep swallows you mid-curse. It doesn't stick. A school of jellyfish pulse against the hull, translucent umbrellas catching moonlight. Their glow paints the deck in cobalt soars. You count 17, 18, lose track when they start whispering in Malayalam. 8th century poets compared dying sailors to drifting jellies. The comparisons gotten literal. Mango leaves, you croak, remembering your mother's fever remedy. She'd steep them with turmeric, trickle the concoction between cracked lips. You settle for licking night, dew off a stray pulley, tastes like failure with a metallic finish. The missing nail's absence throbs, a phantom limb in your apron. You tear a hinge from the cargo hatch, bronze substitute, gleaming with rat piss. Kings once executed builders for lesser heresies. You're fresh out of fucks to give. Dawn proper arrives, harsh and yellow as a jaundiced eye. The galleon groans, shifts, settles deeper into the silt, 10 paces west. The tide's first fingers creep toward the hull. You spit into the receding water. Watch your defiance sink like a stone. Clever, hisses the ocean, waves lipping the keel in wet kisses. Your knees buckle again, saved by a backhanded grab at the anchor chain. Rust flakes snow onto your boots. Grandfather's voice grumbles about poor maintenance. His ghost can shove it. The horizon blurs, shipwreck, mirage. Either way, it's moving closer. Heat shimmers bake the air into delirium soup. A prostitute in Nagapatnam once swore fever visions, showed her lost gold yours, shows a frog wearing your father's face. Not helpful, you swipe at sweat. Come away with bloodied palm lines. Palmists in Mylapore would read impending doom jokes on them. You're already there. That missing nail throbs like a second heartbeat, a taunting Cudamalai drum solo. The substitute hinge bites into the plank, ugly but functional. You hammer until the world whites out, until the ship's creaks soften to lullabies. Trade galleons once carried opium for pain. You've got grit and bad life choices. Almost croons the tide, but almost drowns sailors too. The horizon bleeds gold, a sunrise ripening too fast. You squint, count heartbeats, 9 seconds from first glow to full radiance. Medieval fishing crews timed dawns with hourglasses. This one's broken physics. Your pulse quickens until a torch flares on the shore. Just some night fishers bait fire. Hope curdles. You slump against the mast, splinters prickling your spine through sweat-soggy cloth. False dawn, you mutter. 9th century Arab traders wrote about Al-Fajr al-Katib, liar's sunrise. Should have guessed. The fisher's flame bobs, miming a jaunty wave. Salt crust cracks as you flip him a trembling middle finger gesture invented by English archers. Wasted here. Blisters burst when you grip the rail, sizzling like frying squid. Moonlight glints on something below, a broken oar. No, your own reflection in still water. Beard wild, eyes 2 burnt holes in parchment skin. Indian poets compared shipbuilders to ascetics. Forgot to mention the stench. The tide retreats, exposing a stretch of beach riddled with crab holes. Each pit burps methane, tiny blue flames flicker. You've heard drunken sailors swear they're ghost lamps. Right now, they look like birthday candles on a grave cake. Dawn's lie lingers, your muscles still thrumming with its false promise. You fumble for a water skin, suck moldy leather. 13th century Ceylon ports sold lemon-infused brine as revival tonics. Tastes like regret and citric acid. Spit. Something clatters in the hold rats. monsoon winds. Both sound equally judgmental. Your hammer lies abandoned by the scuppers, handle chewed by shipworms. 17 generations of your lineage carved their initials there. Yours reads like a scratch from a dying man. The torchlight dims Fisher, heading home. His wake glows phosphorus from rotting mackerel guts. Brightest bioluminescence happens near death, poetic and annoying. You chuck a rusty belaying pin at the glow miss. It sinks with a wet belch. Should been a poet, you rasp. Wrote dank verses, died young. Wind riffles your eyelashes, carrying the nasal whine of a conch horn. Dawn patrols signaling tides, or your eardrums finally surrendering. Historians still argue whether Chola dockmasters used shell horns or brass bells. The debate feels academic when your skull's the instrument. You peel a strip of sunburnt skin, papery translucent. Beneath, raw pink flesh winces at existence. Malayalam folktales claim shedding skin resets bad karma. You'd need to molt 7 times to fix this mess. The Galleon creaks, a deep, wooden sigh, flexing with the tide, or finally giving up. Your knees hit deck again. Friendly now, old friends reuniting. A bead of sweat rolls off your nose, plink into a tidal pool. Ripples distort the false dawn's reflection. Gold shattering into shrapnel. Minutes ooze by, each stretched like saltwater taffy. Your thumbnail traces the deck's grain, memorizing growth rings. Shipwright's once red timber patterns like palmistry. These lines scream drowning when true dawn tiptoes in gray and apologetic. You barely lift your head. The fisher's torch has drowned crab's retreat. Even the bioluminescence fades. Reality's bland compared to fever dream lies. You pluck a wood shaving from your hair, curled like a comma. The sentence isn't finished, but punctuation's the least of your worries. The weight of unwritten prayers drags your hand downward, paintbrush missing the bow's ceremonial lotus entirely. Marine blue drips onto your sandal, staining coins minted for burial rites. 3 generations of your family painted eyes on ship prows, allegedly guiding vessels through afterlife currents. Tonight, the bow stays blind. Rain arrives uninvited, needling your neck with half-frozen drops. Traders claimed 14th century Chola galleys used black honey mixed with lime to seal hulls. Divine and waterproof. You slap on tar instead, stickier than a courtesan's promises. The ocean hisses approval or indigestion. No conch blast marks the moment, no incense swirling into dragon shapes, just a rusted nail between your teeth, iron tang mocking sacred oils. Waves thrash the stern each collision, louder than temple gongs. Historians still argue whether bow blessings prevented shipworms or just inflated priests' egos. You're betting lunch on the latter. Something cracks overhead. The mast's shadow writhes like a hanged man. Rigging whips your face, salt and hemp fibers grinding into cheeks. A Baltic folk tale claims storm winds carry dead sailors' curses. This gust reeks of pickled herring and poor life choices. You shield the lone lamp flame, guttering in its bronze cage. Vikings believed lanterns fueled by shark oil repelled sea wraiths, might explain their terrible seafood cuisine. Rain extinguishes the light anyway, darkness slurping up your defiance. First unblinded ship since Emperor Narasimha's drowned fleet. Bad omen or fresh start. Teak planks shudder beneath your knees, ship, convulsing like a birthing calf. The missing blessing curdles the air, or maybe that's the moldy rice in your pocket. 18th century Dutch traders dismissed prow ceremonies as naked savagery. Their ships sank too. Lightning fork stabs the horizon, tattooing the coast in jagged afterimages. Your hammer strikes the final spike, a metallic scream drowned by thunder. No chance, no flower garlands, just 9 pounds of bronze bridging wood and rebellion. Malay folklore insists unblessed ships sprout barnacle beards. You'll shave religiously. The lamp's corpse rolls starboard, you lunge instinctively. Fingernails rip on barnacles, blood blooming like camellia petals. 14th century Persian medical texts recommended seawater for wound cleansing. They omitted the sting and the metallic aftertaste. Rain morphs to hail frozen peas pelting the deck. You crouch beneath the half-rigged sail, knees protesting like unoiled hinges. A merchant once swore monsoon hail contained diamonds. This feels personal, like the sky's spitting teeth. Waves slam portside, the world tilts. Your ribs meet the rail, breath escaping as a wet honk. Shipbuilders from Alexandria designed angled decks to shed water. Forgot about shedding idiots. Saltwater sluices into boots, cold climbing your calves like vengeful spiders. Dawn limps in gray light, revealing the shore's retreat. No crowd cheers, no priest wails, just gulls circling like bailiffs. Your tongue probes a cracked molar, gold-plated from that Java job years ago. Pawn shops and dentists, humanity's true unifiers. The blind prow slices froth, a jagged grin against the seascape. Rigging hums, off-key, but alive. You unclench your fist, ceremonial rice scattering like miniature skulls. Let historians debate rituals, your epitaphs already carved in tidal mud. And it's 3 words shorter than tradition demands. A barnacle-encrusted box grates against your boot, the tide's belated apology. Inside, a journal splayed open like a wounded gull. Pages stick together, salt-swollen sentences bleeding indigo. You kneel, knees popping louder than monsoon ice, and peel apart a confession. The Krakatoa run broke us. Crew tore the compass apart for burial amulets. Sun-warmed leather sticks to your palm. Same stench as your father's old sea chest. 16th century Portuguese captains stored logs in lead cases. But this reeks of cheap whale oil and panic. A sketch flutters out, a 3-masted horror tangled in what looks like giant squid arms. Caption: First mate's last drawing before the screaming started. Charming bedtime reading. Wind riffles damp pages. You catch phrases between gusts, glass waves that burned the hull, and the thing wore the purser's face. Historians still argue whether sun madness or mercury-laced rations caused most maritime delusions. This guy voted eldritch nightmares. Your thumb smudges a wine stain, faded carmine circles like phantom coins. Pirate lore claims Borgia popes blessed rogue ships with tainted sacramental wine. Hence the term drunk as a cardinal. These stains suggest communion or cheap Rioja. The journal hisses as you snap it shut, trapped seawater spraying your cheek. You dig a fingers clawing through sand that's 80% pulverized seashells, 10% dead coral, and 90% misery. 18th century hygienists prescribed beach walks for melancholic vapors. They never shoveled a grave for someone else's ghosts. Buried, the journal becomes a paper corpse under barnacle shards. No marker, just a shattered whelk shell as its headstone. Your hands itch, left palm throbbing where that cursed nail pierced you yesterday. Sailors whispered that handling another's log could transfer their misfortune. You wipe fingers on your stolen apron, a failed exorcism. Tide licks your ankles, impatient saboteur. Above, gulls spin like vultures doubting your resolve. That sketch of the squid ship gnaws your thoughts. Modern scholars found squid beaks in Baltic amber, proof they haunted ancient shores. Makes you wonder what else fossil records got wrong. The sun retreats coward. You pocket a twisted nail from the driftwood box, souvenir or hex. Your boot grinds the burial site, flattening doubts into the wet grit. Waves whisper secrets. You reply with the stubborn silence of a hull breaching storm surf. Let Krakatoa's ghosts complain. You've got your own spectral committee to manage. Orphaned pages flutter in your wake, ink dissolving into sea foam. One phrase survives the retreating tide. Better to sink than carry this knowledge. You hum a Tamil lullaby and let the horizon argue. The rudder bites into your hip, a rusted fang, protesting the weight of waterlogged hemp. You kneel and meet the sea's practical joke. A fisherman's net knotted around the tiller like a drunk octopus. 19th century trawlers used indigo-dyed nets to scare off demons. This one's just rotten sisal and bad decisions. Blistered fingers trace the tangle. A crusted tag flaps Portuguese. Malay. The knot works all wrong, overhand loops twist into granny hitches. A chaotic manifesto against maritime order. Victorian sailors carried lucky knots in bottles, which explained their constant drowning while holding glass shards. Salt crusts your lower lip as you spit, an offering Poseidon ignores. The knife feels heavier today. 9th century Java ship logs mention Ikan Raja, threadfish, that unraveled rigging to build reef nests. Historians still argue whether that's ichthyology or opium-laced poetry. Either way, you're the one carving through 50 years of drowned rigging. Sawing begins. The hemp squeals like a stepped-on cat. Each frayed strand whispers consequences. A net cut at low tide curses 7 voyages. Your father believed that. Then again, he also believed coconut oil could make his mustache tingle with cosmic awareness. A diamond-shaped float bobs loose, cracking open to reveal sand dollars and a chipped domino. Gambler's grave goods, you pocket it before superstition says not to. The rudder groans free, trailing sargassum tendrils. Gulls jeer, one stubborn cord resists the coralline. Sweat slips down your neck tacky as spoiled molasses. You press the blade deep, grip slipping. 17th century Dutch texts warned against severing the heartstring of maritime debris, said it invited locker demons. The knife severs the cord, and your L-A-S-T Chinese letter. Black water gushes through the cleared gap, a wet gasp from the deep. Your reflection wobbles, a stranger's face mottled by barnacle shadows. The net sinks, twitching like a dying neuralgia. Monsoon winds taste different now, sharp with iodine and absolution. You flick the domino into the retreating foam. Let the next idiot mystic find it. The Galleon shudders, groans like a wounded bull elephant. Saltwater drips from overhead beams, each droplet carving canyons in the silt beneath your boots. You brace against the hull, palms sinking into teakwood treated with fish oil and lime. 13th century shipwrights swore by that rancid mix, but your nostrils swear at it. A timber cracks sharp as a musket shot. You roll left, crushed shell biting through your trousers. The mainmast slams down where your leg was, splinters spraying like shrapnel. Pain arcs from knee to spine your body's own lighthouse flare. Through the haze, you count 7 bronze nails, each stamped with the king's lotus crest. 5 generations called this the covenant number, but they also favored leeches for typhus. Iron nails were avoided at sea. Superstition claimed they drew lightning strikes. Your father used wooden pegs for decking, right before his mast split during a dry storm. The tide rasps higher, licking your ankles with frothy urgency. Historians still debate Chola sails, square for speed or lateen for monsoons. You've rigged both, and tonight, neither might matter. That cracked mast mocks your choices, a jagged tooth against the indigo sky. Worker ants scramble up your shin, drawn by the blood seeping through torn fabric. You shake them off, a twitch that nearly topples you into the tidal slurry. Priests claimed shipwrights shared souls with their vessels. If true, this galleon's soul is a seasick drunk. A crab sidesteps the shattered mast, carrying a barnacle like a parasol. Its pincers snip at your shadow, an 8-legged critic of your life choices. You kick wet sand at it, not your finest moment, but cathartic. The hull creaks, a sound felt more in the molars than the ears. You fumble for the remaining nails, cool bronze against calloused fingers. 16th century melees inserted gold pins into masts to ward off wood sprites. You settle for bronze and spite. Moonlight glints off the tide pool around your boots, revealing a reflection fractured by ripples. One eye swollen, lips split, hair salted into Medusa's cheaper cousin. A wave slaps the hull, salt, stinging fresh cuts. The ocean's version of applause. You press a nail against the cracked strake, hammer trembling like a dowager's teacup. First strike glances off, sparking against a barnacle. Second strike bites true bronze sinking into resistant grain. Tamil poets wrote epics about wood that sings. This plank screams. 3 nails later, your vision swims, horizon blurring into a watercolor smear. The galleons never looked worse or better, wreck or masterpiece. Art critics with shark teeth will decide. You slump against the rail, back sliding against algae-slick wood. Dawn bleeds across the mudflats, revealing the truth. The hull lists starboard, a drunkard's shuffle toward deeper water. Launch now and risk capsizing. Wait and drown in the tide's return. Your father's voice murmurs something about honorable sinkings. You choose dawn. Rigging slaps the deck in protest as you limp toward the makeshift slipway. A seagull lands on the figurehead, depositing a half-digested fish onto the prow. Some cultures consider that a blessing. You consider it avian commentary on your carpentry. The final nail winks from your apron pocket. You hesitate, drive it into the rail instead of the hull. Let future salvagers wonder. Maybe draw a little map in their notebooks. The first wave lifts the bow, wood groaning like a stepped-on accordion. Your knees buckle as the galleon lurches seaward, silt sucking at your heels. The crab watches from a sandbar, pincers raised in what might be farewell, or gloating. Saltwater soaks your waistband, a chilly reminder of mortality's dress code. Darkness flickers at the edges of your vision as the current takes hold. Somewhere beneath the groaning timbers, you swear a flute plays, probably just air escaping a soaked deck joint. Probably the hull bucks beneath you, a wild stallion tasting open water. 7 bronze spikes clink in your apron, 1 shy of the needed 8. 13th century Chola codes demanded 36 nails per strake, sacred math echoing cosmic patterns. You've got 35, and a chest-crushing sense of irony. Waves slap the listing deck, each impact threatening to snap the makeshift caulking. Your fingers skim the remaining spikes. One's a hinge pin from the sterncastle door. Another's a cairn bolt meant for your father's burial shrine. Choices, choices. Historians still argue whether Chola nail counts were holy numbers or just solid engineering. Tonight, they're a death sentence. You lunge for the sterncastle hinge. Its removal would leave the door flapping like a rotted sail. But that bolt in your pocket, etched with lineage, marks older than Tamil Nadu's iron smelters. Could it weather saltwater? A 1423 shipwreck near Java held tools wrapped in silk, craftsmen's final offerings to the deep. Your bolt feels heavier than the anchors you can't afford. Teakwood groans, a sound like spine vertebrae popping. The missing nail's hole stares up, a hungry mouth. You jam the hinge pin halfway and it bends like cheap brass. Rookie mistake. Wood hisses as seawater infiltrates the gap. Somewhere a dolphin breaches, or maybe it's just your hopes sinking. Your knife finds the cairn bolt's wax seal. Breaking it feels like severing an umbilical cord. Bronze meets oak, first strike echoing across the bay. Fishermen on shore swear they saw St. Elmo's fire that night. But you're just a fool with a hammer. 3 spikes left. Knees grind against decking slick with kelp spit. 18th century Dutch traders wrote of Chola ships outrunning monsoons. None mentioned carpenters knee bursitis. A rogue wave slams portside, salt water sloshing into your boots. The ocean's way of saying hurry up. You sacrifice the last hinge pin. Steelhead trout, eyes glint in the shallows, witnesses to this nautical hack job. The final spike seats crooked, bronze cold against your fevered palm. Rigging snaps overhead, a rotten halyard whipping past like a vengeful cobra. Low tide's stench rises, rotten eggs and dead coral. Your father's voice cuts through the brine. Better a shark's meal than a king's laughingstock. The hull shudders, sealing your choice. 7 spikes hold, plus 1 stolen from eternity. Dawn bleeds gray through monsoon clouds. The galleon floats, sort of. Starboard rail kisses the waves with each swell. You press your forehead to the crooked nail, tasting iron and regret. Some cultures believe sweat seals pacts with the sea, your brow's a monsoon. Ants explore the cairn bolt's defaced markings. A seagull perches on the splintered mast, dropping a crab carcass at your feet. You pocket the shell future historians might mistake it for spiritual intent. Blood trickles where the hammer slipped, a crimson Rorschach on sun-bleached wood. Tamil poets wrote of shipwrights becoming their vessels. Right now, you are the hull cracked listing, but stubbornly afloat. The horizon yawns, indifferent as an emptied hourglass. The hull's groan hits a new octave, a warped board near the bilge, vomiting seawater. You clamp your palm over the split, skin meeting splintered teak. 13th century Chola texts praise coconut fiber caulk. But tonight's sealant runs crimson. Blood pools between your fingers, warm, until salt wind ices it. Fishermen whisper old tricks, how Malay sailors once mixed hair and turtle fat for leeks. Your version's simpler and hurts worse. The ship sucks at your wound like a thirsty infant. A wave sloshes ankle deep. Rusting tools float past like dead fish. You remember the royal shipyard's glory days, pounded rice paste ceiling, seams for the emperor's fleet. Maritime archaeologists found trace hemoglobin in a coromandel wreck. But was it sacrifice or accident? Your free hand fumbles for rags, finds only frayed prayer flags. Bengali rope makers wove cotton with hymns. These shreds just mop up failure. Kneeling grinds glass into raw palms. Cold seeps up your calves. Each pulse sends a red rivulet dancing across warped planks, nature's own bilge pump. A Portuguese trade log from 1302 describes caulking with goat's blood. You're improvising the urban legend edition. The leak slows temporarily. Salt crystallizes in the cut crude cauterization. You snort laugh, remembering Ayener shrine rituals, priests anointing ships with chicken necks. Not so different now, just messier, and with worse music. Moonlight glints on your makeshift bandage, a torn sleeve already unraveling. 9th century Arab traders wrote of desperate crews using chewed betel nuts as sealant. Yours might be the first Yelp review for hemoglobin hull repair. Wood creaks, another joint threatens rebellion. Your blood's drying tacky, temporary relief. Historians still argue whether maritime blood rights were practical or theatrical. Right now, it's both, with extra stinging. The hole mocks you, edges puckered like a sneering mouth. You press harder, nails digging into already butchered skin. Some monsoon. This feels more like the ocean's petty spittoon. A crab scuttles over your boot, claws clicking against soaked leather. Your father's voice drifts back. Real shipwrights planned 7 leaks before breakfast. He never mentioned becoming the cork. The Galleon lurches, your forehead meets a beam. Stars bloom, actual and metaphorical. Dutch voyagers documented concussion-based navigation. You're pioneering blunt force caulking. Blood mixes with brine pink foam sloshing in the hold. You peel your hand away, skin sticks like parchment glue. The leaks shrunk, but your head buzzes like a beehive kicked by sandals. Shouts echo from shore, torchlight bobbing like drunken fireflies. King's inspectors, moonlighters hunting salvage. Either way, you're not sticking around for reviews. One last press, your life force versus the Bay of Bengal. The wood accepts the offering for now. Tomorrow's problem. Salt crusts your eyelashes, the world reduced to a stinging blur. Somewhere beneath the keel, a fish nips at drifting crimson tendrils. You hope it's vegetarian. The ocean chuckles, a gurgling, indecent sound. Your blood joins centuries of maritime macabre. Another tale for monsoon nights. Copper tang hangs thick, a butcher shop in high summer. Your thumb finds the pulse in your wrist, 30 beats per soaked rag. The ship groans approval or indigestion. Either way, you've bought another hour. Footsteps creak overhead, real or spectral. You lack the energy to care. Tamil poets wrote of ships swallowing their builders. Turns out it's less metaphor and more Monday. Dawn's first smear bleeds orange at the horizon. Your hand peels free with a wet smack, epidermis left behind like bad wallpaper. The leak holds barely. You slump against a barrel, taste iron on chapped lips. 19th century British reports mocked superstitious caulking rituals. But here you are, alive-ish. The seabird glaring from the crow's nest seems impressed. Blood drips steady now, a metronome counting down the tide's return. You fumble for a bottle of Eric, find it empty. Of course, the ocean belches nearby, sympathy or indigestion. Your palm throbs in time with the surf, a duet of poor choices. Carthaginian sailors supposedly used prisoners' blood for hull blessings. You're the crew and cargo tonight. Shadows lengthen across the hold. The ship drinks and drinks and drinks. Wind shrieks through the rigging, a howling third mate nobody ordered. Fresh pitch hardens too fast on the deck, storm's breath stealing your last chance for touch-ups. 17th century logbooks praise monsoon winds for curing sealants, but they failed to mention the sandblast effect. Rain needles your neck, cold spite from a helpful gale. You cinch a sailcloth around your shoulders, improvised poncho flapping like an angry albatross. Malay sailors once rubbed pig fat on their skin to repel storms. Your version involves cursing and a stolen jar of goose grease. The mast sways taut ropes, singing discordant hymns. You brace against the capstan knees, remembering Dutch carpenters' advice about storm crouches. Historians still argue whether pitch applicators used broomsticks or whalebone spatulas. Right now, you're the tool spatulaing with your last trowel. Lightning forks the sky for half a heartbeat. The deck glows prison yard bright. Your shadow stretches gone across planks, a stick figure etched in pitch. 13th century Chola poets compared thunder to war drums. But this feels personal. Thor's got a grudge and terrible aim. Hail peppers the ship, angry pearls denting your goose-greased scalp. You duck beneath the forecastle forehead, meeting a dangling pulley. Stars wink behind your eyelids, the non-celestial kind. Byzantine sailors believed concussions warded off sea witches. You're collecting prophylactic head trauma. The storm smothers the stink of wet rat fur, small mercies. Your trowel scrapes coagulated pitch strings of black taffy clinging to the blade. Portuguese traders wrote of using storm winds to dry lacquer in half the time. They forgot to mention the vomit-inducing sway. A wave slams the starboard flank. The deck tilts like a drunkard's table. Tools slide toward oblivion. You belly flop to save a mallet. Your ribs protest. The ship chuckles through soaked timbers. Carthaginian shipwrights tethered themselves during storms, but your ropes currently mooring a loose barrel of rancid butter. Rain drills the figurehead's empty eye socket. Your pendant glints in the chaos. Somewhere offshore, a Tamil king's ghost scowls at your shoddy craftsmanship. Marine archaeologists found storm-anchored votive coins near Pondicherry. You mentally sacrifice a copper to the waves. The squall dies as abruptly as it came, silence, ringing louder than bells. Sunlight spears through retreating clouds, your pitch job gleaming like a beetle's back. You spit salt water, and something that might be a tooth. 9th century Arab texts describe tempest-tempered hulls, outlasting calm weather ships. This better be one of them. Your clothes cling like jealous lovers. Every step squelches. The mallet's handle has imprinted a holy symbol onto your palm, or maybe just a splinter pattern. South Indian monsoons historically boosted Chola trade. Right now, you'd trade it all for a dry tunic. A gull lands on the crosstrees, beak clacking judgment. You flash it, a one-fingered salute perfected by Genoese dockworkers. The bird retaliates with a shellfish dropped near your boot. Maritime critique At its messiest, dawn leaks across the horizon, honey gold betrayal. That quick-drying storm stole 12 hours of your life. You pick pitch strings from your bearded personal confetti for surviving another night. Venetian coats of arms once bore the phrase tempestatum superavi, your more vomitatum sustenui. The deck steams, last puddles surrendering to sunlight. Your boots leave temporary footprints, ghostly stamps of presence. Korean annals mention typhoon-dried ships, sailing 3 decades without rot. You give this hulk 3 weeks. Toolbox lids creak open, rusty hinges harmonizing with your joints. Storm's gift sits heavy in your lungs, damp residue of borrowed time. You hum a dockside shanty, off-key and defiant. The ocean answers with a lethargic wave, or maybe it's just belching. Somewhere beneath the hull, barnacles crackle nature's own applause. Your reflection in a pitch puddle shows a man aged a decade in a night. The gull squawks, offering a rating of 1 star and half a clam. You raise the mallet, blade catching the sun, and resume pounding. The ship sighs, content or resigned. It's all the same rhythm now. Shadows thicken in the rigging. Your mallet strokes sync with the ship's creaks. Ropes coil and uncoil like drowsy snakes, until phantom fingers grab the loose ends. 17th century Phoenician logs mention spectral crews, guiding storm-battered ships, but none warned about their terrible knotwork. A cold breath tickles your nape, frigid irony. After last night's sweat, the mainsail jerks upward, hoisted by invisible arms straining against moonlight. Historians still argue whether old navies used hemp or human hair for emergency rigging. Right now, you'll take the dead volunteers. The crow's nest shudders. A half-seen shape vanishes through rain-warped wood. You catch a whiff of brine and pipe, smoke, your grandfather's ghostly signature. Norse sagas describe Draugr haunting longships, rotten sea zombies moaning about unpaid debts. These helpers lack mouths, and the smell. Tar buckets levitate, specters daub gaps you missed at dawn. Their drips freeze midair, shimmering like cursed jewelry. Medieval Baltic sailors whispered blessings into sails to bind wind spirits. You settle for a hissed thanks, I guess. The jib snaps taut, yanking the ship starboard. You stumble, but an icy palm steadies your elbow. It lingers, a cobweb touch burning through your sleeve. Experts think Roman triremes painted eyes on hulls to ward off phantoms. Too late for that now. Silent laughter rattles the mizzen chains, mocking your goose-greased hair. Your stolen pendant glows faintly, the king's ghost taking credit. 18th century Breton ships buried horse skulls in masts to mute ghostly chatter. You'd settle for earplugs. Weightless hands guide your hammer. A final nail sinks home. The relief lasts seconds, until you spot their shadows mimic your every move. Malacca port ledgers list phantom dockhands as taxable labor. Maybe you'll deduct them from the king's invoice. Their murmurs sharpen, needle points of Tamil lullabies skewering your temples. You hum a tavern tune to drown them out. They harmonize off-key. 13th century Chamorro navigators believed insanity at sea signaled divine favor. You feel aggressively blessed. Moonlight fractures. The figures flicker like bad lamp oil. One gestures toward the horizon, urgent but vague. Marine archaeologists debate whether Chola figureheads held hidden compartments for curses or contraband. You're voting for aspirin. The crew fades, taking fragments of your last coherent thought. Was that an actual rope adjustment? Or did you imagine solving Pythagoras' theorem mid-swing? Baltic shipwrights carved lyres' knots to confuse thieving spirits. You've tied 7 without trying. Your left boot squelches, a puddle of spectral bilge or regular seawater. The tiller spins freely, nudged by a breeze smelling of funeral incense. You grab it, palms tingling with someone else's desperation. The crew's whispers unravel into seagull cries, carrying away words like keel and mercy. Dawn bleeds through the remaining dark. Your shadow stretches solitary again. Rigging droops. No trace of supernatural aid. Historians still argue whether ghost ships inspired tales of Flying Dutchmen. You're just thrilled they didn't unionize. Salt crusts your lashes, blinking, reveals the fully set sail. The ship slices waves, oddly steady, without wind. You touch the deck, warm where spirit stood. A gull lands, head cocked, judging your grip on reality. Your tools lie stacked by your hand or theirs. One chisel glows faintly etched with unfamiliar initials. Maybe a phantom's parting gift or your brain's last valiant lie. The horizon blurs waves and sky merging into an endless seam. You exhale, lungs aching, and turn to check the compass. Its needle points north and slightly toward regret. The compass needle trembles northbound, but quivering like a guilty conscience. You spit salt and blood, the aftertaste of 3 sleepless nights. Chola sails billow, stiff trapezoids, thwacking wind like those Arab dhow captains, always envied. 17 sailors could have handled this launch. You've got gravity and desperation. The galleon lurches, timbers screaming as waves lick its flanks. Your knees buckle, palms grinding against deck, seams still oozing shark oil. Historians muse about Tamil traders using fermented mango pulp to caulk ships. Right now, you'd kill for a snack. Water surges up the beach, a frothing accomplice stealing the hull from under you. Rigging whips wild, loose ropes sketching ghost sailors' final dance. A gull shrieks, or is that your own voice fraying? You taste copper, realize you've bitten through your cheek. The ship bucks, throwing you against a rail carved with lotus blossoms. Splinters prickle your ribs, familiar as your dead wife's hairpin. Below, the figurehead gulps seawater, your pendant lodged in its empty eye socket. Marine archaeologists will later debate whether Chola prows stored spices or curses. You're betting on both. Salt spray blurs the horizon. The world tilts 40 degrees and stays there. Your lungs claw for air, too full of monsoon humidity and last night's palm wine. A childhood rhyme loops anchors up, King's Cup, 7 waves till you drown. You're on wave 6. Sunlight glares off wet planks, each nail head glowing like a tiny prison window. Your hammer lies at the stern, but when did you drop it? 17th century Spanish manifests list phantom tools vanishing mid-voyage, maybe yours, just enlisted. The Galleon finds its rhythm, a groaning waltz with the tide. You slump against the mast, fingers tracing gashes from last week's borrowed axes. Dutch shipwrights supposedly hid love letters in hollow masts. This one's packed with your curses. Shadows lengthen across the deck. Or are those liquid darknesses rising? You kick a stray bucket. It morphs mid-roll into a crab scuttling sideways. Your vision wavers. The seabirds overhead now resemble vultures. Or tax collectors. Rigging snaps taut. The mainsail catches a stray gust with a sound like tearing parchment. The ship surges, dragging you forward on blood-slick knees. You gag on brine half ocean, half the snot dripping from your nose. Night falls in a single breath, stars smearing across the sky like dropped rice. A lantern flickers to life, not by your hand. Its light reveals footprints on the deck, yours, theirs. Historians still argue whether Chola navigators used Venus or vodka for night sailing. Your eyelids sag, the compass swims, needle dancing between north and nowhere. The last sane part of your mind whispers, sleep now, they'll find you floating. A wave slaps the hull, laughing at the idea of rescue. Teak creaks beneath you, a lullaby older than Sanskrit. Your fingers relax. One last nail rolls free, plinking into the dark. Some claim shipworms sing as they devour hulls. You hope they're mercifully tone-deaf. Cold seeps into your bones, or maybe you're seeping into the sea. The pendant winks once, then goes dull as a dead man's eye. Your chin hits your chest, salt water, and spit pooling in your lap. Seabirds scream or cheer or recite your funeral verses. The waves aren't particular. You float or sink or finally stop counting debts. Blackness swallows the stars, but not before you glimpse the horizon straightening. The ship sprouts wings of froth and flies. The figurehead's hollow stare mocks you, wooden eyelids forever half shut. Jade once filled those sockets, now just twin voids drinking seawater. Your pendant chokes your neck, its bronze loop biting skin like a judgmental parrot. Experts think Chola figureheads depicted goddesses of trade winds, though this one's scowling like a tax collector. Splinters jab your palm as you claw up the bowsprit. Waves vomit froth below the ocean, hiccuping your failures back at you. 16th century logs mention sailors bribing figureheads with spices. You're fresh out of cardamom. The ship shudders, a wet cough rattling its timbers. You spit on the figurehead's brow. It sizzles like betrayal. Your pendant's edges dig raw grooves into your fist. Historians still argue whether Chola masons sourced jade from Myanmar or melted down stolen temple idols. Doesn't matter now. The cord snaps with one yank, bronze warm as a dying man's pulse. A wave slaps the hull, salty fist demanding payment. You jam the pendant into the left socket, too small, but the sea rams it home. Greenish light flares, or maybe that's retinal damage from 3 days without sleep. The ship groans a sound like bent armor plates. Rigging snaps taut, sails puffing like a bullfrog's throat. You cling to the figurehead's chipped nose, breath hitching at the stink of rotting kelp. Medieval Tamil texts mention stone-eyed sentinels, calming storms. Hope yours works on creditors. Wind claws your tunic, threads peeling away like old sunburn. The right socket gapes empty as your coin purse last monsoon season. A childhood myth whispers, one eye sees, 2 eyes steer. Too late, your knife hovers over the other pendant, the one etched with your daughter's name. 6 generations of shipwrights carved their heirs' initials here, but the sea's already taken 2 of yours. The blade trembles, then slices the cord with a sigh. Bronze meets wood, a metallic kiss drowned by gull shrieks. Twin green glows now, or maybe your fever's back. Rigging hums an eerie C-sharp, or that's the blood roaring in your ears. The figurehead spasms, lips parting in a wooden scream. Bow planks shriek, seams weeping black resin. An old dockmaster once swore figureheads stored drowned sailors' souls. Right now, you'd believe him. Your boot slips, toenail ripping on a barnacle-encrusted cleat. Pain blooms sharp and stupid, like stepping on your own needles. 17th century Dutch traders drank shark bile for courage. You settle for a pirated swear word. The ship lurches starboard, throwing you against a cannon mount. Ribs crunch, air fleeing your lungs like traitors. Some claim Chola cannons fired gold coins to dazzle enemies. Yours hasn't shot anything but seabirds. Pendant light leaks through the figurehead's nostrils, sickly green beams slicing fog. The horizon tilts, then rights itself like a drunk courtier. Rigging knots untie themselves, ropes slithering into new configurations. A Bangkok street vendor once sold you monkeys' fist knots for luck, should have bought more. Salt crusts your lips, tongue swollen from dehydration. You blink at the twin green suns ahead, no, just the pendant eyes refracting moonlight. Historians muse whether figureheads guided ships, or just gave sailors something to blame. Your knife clatters to the deck, fingers too numb to curse it. The ship surges, a predator tasting blood. Waves hiss promises or threats, or your mother's lullabies. 3 gulls land on the figurehead's shoulders, feathers dripping with spite. One pecks at your pendant, its beak clicking against bronze. You swat, miss, tumble into the scupper drain. Dawn bleeds across the sky, pink as a fresh scar. The figurehead's eyes dim, now just dented metal. The ship slows, groans, settles into a placid glide. You slump against the rail, palms slick with pitch and failure. Somewhere beneath you, 300 tons of ironwood holds, or doesn't. Marine archaeologists will later find your pendants fused to the prow. Call it ritual instead of desperation. Wind tugs your hair softer now, almost apologetic. The sea spreads before you, endless and indifferent. You close your salt-crusted eyes. Let the pendant's weak glow etch your eyelids. Some say the Chola's greatest treasure was their shipwright's pride. You've bartered yours for 2 bronze scraps and a maybe-breathing hull. The ocean murmurs vowels without consonants. You listen. The ocean's murmur thickens, a wet whisper threading through the galleon's ribs. Red bleeds into the western clouds, the sky's own bruise. No cheers rise from the deck, just the click-click of rigging lines, playing cat's cradle with the wind. Your lungs wheeze in time with the tide, each breath a negotiation. Coir ropes hang limp, soaked in fish oil for flexibility, stinking like a week-dead mackerel. 16th century logs praise Chola rigging as sea vines that never snap. Yours groans like a rusty hinge. A gull lands on the rail, one eye judging your craftsmanship, the other scanning for your corpse. The twin bronze pendants glow dully in the figurehead sockets, patina spreading like mold on bread. Naval scholars insist Chola galleons used ceramic tiles for night signaling. You're banking on discarded jewelry. Salt crusts your eyelashes, blinking feels like rubbing sandpaper over marbles. Waves slap the hull in uneven thirds, a drunkard's waltz. Your knife lies rusting near the scuppers, blade nicked from prying open a stubborn tar barrel. Historians still argue whether Chola navigators used lodestones or star charts. You're steering by the ache in your left knee. The deck buckles, wood fibers screaming like plucked harp strings. You grab the rail splinters embedding under your nails like tiny insults. A Tamil proverb whispers a calm sea hides the crocodile's grin. But yours is all teeth. Greenish light seeps from the figurehead's nostrils, your makeshift eyes leaking ambition. Sunset licks the horizon tide, pooling around your ankles like a nursemaid's caution. 5 generations back, your ancestors built warships that crippled the Srivijaya Empire. This one barely survives a stiff breeze. A turn dive bombs the figurehead, wings clipping your ear. Its cry echoes the harbor master's laughter when you launched at low tide. Marine worms scratch beneath the planks, nature's own bankruptcy notice. You count 7 barnacles on your boot. 8 is bad luck. Or was it 9? The pendants flicker, then die. Darkness swallows the prow, the horizon blurring into a charcoal smear. Your tongue swells against your teeth, dehydration's cruel joke. An old wives' tale claims swallowing saltwater cures madness. You gargle a mouthful and instantly regret it. Moonlight claws through the clouds, sharp enough to slice rigging shadows across the deck. You trace the mast's grain, fingertips reading grooves like a blind man's scroll. Shipwrights once pressed love letters between hull planks for good fortune. Yours carries a grocery list and 2 dead men's IOUs. The galleon pitches, your ribs meet the capstan handle with a wet thud. Pain blooms in technicolor, a festival firework behind your eyelids. Dutch traders bet their teeth against scurvy. You trade yours for a compass. Dawn leaks across the sky, pale as watered milk. The figurehead's jaw creaks open, releasing a sigh that reeks of dead shellfish. Rigging snaps, taut sails bellowing like a bullfrog's final croak. The ship lunges forward, hungry for a horizon you no longer trust. Barnacle cuts weep down your shins, red tributaries mapping failures. Your last canteen holds 2 sips and a drowned cockroach luxury by yesterday's standards. A traveler's journal once described the Chola Navy as sea dragons with teak scales. You're riding a malnourished iguana. Wind shifts, salted knives sawing your cheeks. The pendants spark fitfully, bronze oxidizing into crumbling lacework. You peel a blistered thumbprint from the helm, leaving behind a ghost of your hand. Clouds congeal into a fist, lightning stitching its knuckles. Rain pelts the deck, each drop a nail tap on your coffin lid. Historians muse whether Chola captains feared storms or revered them. You're too busy vomiting bile to care. The figurehead's left eye pops loose, rolling across the deck like a drunkard's coin. You lunge a miss, watch it vanish into the froth. Your remaining pendant dims, a dying firefly's pulse. Fatigue clots your vision, shadows writhe like eels in lamp oil. You slump against the mainmast, spine conforming to its curve like a lover's embrace. Some say shipwrights pour their souls into the keel. Yours is 2/3 regret, 1/3 cheap rum. Stars smear across the night, celestial graffiti. The Galleon drifts sideways, a concussed crab scuttling toward shore. You count 18 waves before sleep takes you, the number of suns your great-grandfather buried at sea. Sunrise finds you curled in the anchor chain's salt, crystallizing your hair into a jagged crown. The horizon bleeds gold, false promise or final taunt. Your knife hilt jabs your hip, a reminder of debts unpaid. The tide retreats, scraping the hull clean of your footprints. Somewhere ahead lie spices, silks, kingdoms to conquer, or just more water. The figurehead's last eye winks out, taking your legacy with it. Wind dies, sails collapsing like a side secret. You open your mouth to curse the gods, taste salt instead. The ocean exhales. You exhale back. Your fingers brush the toy boat's mast, carved from oak, salvaged off a Ming dynasty junk. Chola traders once bartered pearls for celestial maps with Chinese merchants. Your pockets hold splinters and regret. The miniature's hull fits in your palm, a perfect scale replica of this rotting galleon. 13 planks, each grooved by your blade during stolen midnight hours. Dawn licks the horizon, buttermilk light pooling around your boots. You flick the tiny sail. It spins like a drunken top. Scholars debate whether Tamil shipwrights used model boats for design testing or royal gifts. Yours was meant for a boy chasing goats in Nagapattinam. Waves slap the deck, each one closer to claiming your last keepsake. Something clinks inside the toy's hold. You shake it. A single copper coin rolls onto your calloused palm. 17th century Ceylonese, stamped with a parrot and a lotus. Historians argue whether these were trade tokens or gambling pieces. You spit on it, heads for luck, tails for oblivion, before tucking it back inside. The carved name on the stern flutters, paint peeling off the letters like sunburnt skin. Anbu, your daughter's choice, though she never let you hold the child. A wave soaks your knees, the toy bobs in your grip, suddenly heavy as an anchor. Seagulls screech overhead, their shadows crisscrossing the deck like accusatory fingers. You recall Borneo fishermen's wives leaving doll-sized barges at high tide, offerings to placate drowned lovers. Superstition claims the miniatures guide lost souls home, but your hands built coffins, not compasses. The toy's mast snaps, a hairline crack from when the Galleon nearly capsized off Sumatra. You press tar-soaked hemp into the breach, same as repairing the main deck yesterday. 18th century Dutch merchants laughed at Tamil toy boats in Malacca's markets, until monsoons proved their hull design superior. Your thumbnail catches on the prow's carving, a crude sea serpent devouring its own tail. Anbu wood, added wings, children always graft magic onto practicality. Salt crusts your lips, or are those dried tears? The debate about Chola miniature ships' religious significance bores you. This one's just failed hope with a keel. 3 waves later, the toy floats. Currents tug it westward, toward the Coromandel coast or oblivion. You count 11 heartbeats before the first swell swallows it whole. Same number of days since leaving Nagapattinam. A triangular fin breaks the surface near where it vanished, shark or dolphin. You don't stay to check. The coin inside clatters one last protest, then silence. Your pocket sags empty, the weight transferred to some unseen ledger. Midday sun boils the deck into a tar pit mirage. You scratch your wrist, peel up salt scale to find unblemished skin beneath. Strange how the sea strips everything but regret. That monsoon tale about model boats calming typhoons. You hurl a rusted nail at the waves. It arcs like a seabird before vanishing. When the gale hits at dusk, you pretend not to notice the toy's silhouette riding the storm surge, perfectly upright, sails full, tiny figurehead spitting back foam. The illusion holds for 3 breaths before reality shreds it. Half moon reveals an empty cask, lid bobbing where hope floated. You hum a lullaby your mother sang, lyrics dissolved by decades of salt air. Maritime museums display Chola miniatures behind glass. This one's dissolving into fish scales and folklore. Dawn finds you carving a replacement mast from a broken oar. Splinters lodge under your thumbnail, a familiar sting. The coin winks up from the deck, somehow drier than your tongue. Heads or tails, destiny or delusion, you flip it into the wind. The ocean takes that too. Saltwater laps your boots, rising faster than your father's temper during monsoon delays. 17th century Chola shipwrights timed launches to tidal patterns. But you've missed 39 cycles. The nailed plank digs into your palm, teak, blessed by a drunken priest in Mylapore. Historians argue whether those blessings were rituals or excuses to drink temple wine. Barnacles crunch beneath your soles, walking on broken pottery. Your knife slips as you tighten the last spike, 8 rows down, 9 across. Same grid your grandfather carved into motorized temple piers. The ocean inhales, your ankles submerged now. A striped sea snake curls around a rusted pulley. You flick it aside. Its body whips the water into froth. Malay texts warned of these serpents, judging unworthy ships ridiculous. Yet your lungs tighten as silt clouds the shallows. 3 waves later, the mast tilts starboard. You shove against it, shoulder popping, but the angle worsens. Naval records claim Chola galleons could right themselves after capsizing. Those scribes never tested it alone. Cold seeps up your thighs, 1,000 leech mouths. The nail in your fist gleams, bronze alloy from a sunken Portuguese carrack. Traders called it ghost metal, smelted from cannons that failed their crews. Your toes lift off the deck, water's buoyancy betraying you. Historians still debate whether the Chola Empire fell to hubris or monsoon shifts. You spit brine, taste the answer. Fish dart through the submerged rigging, silver streaks in the twilight. One nibbles your earlobe, a bizarre baptism. 18th century Ceylonese divers swore eels could sense a drowning man's heartbeat hurry. The ship groans, cargo shifting below. Coral-studded amphorae roll against the bulkhead, silk bundles bloating like corpses. Scholars pore over such wreckage. None mention the stench of rotting ginger. Moonlight fractures through the surface, rippling bars across the mast. You kick toward it, legs leaden. A crab scuttles over your boot, red claws snapping. Maritime ledgers list crimson-clawed sentinels as omens, but your ledger's full. Air burns in your chest, precious as jade. Tamil pearl hunters could hold their breath for 300 counts. You make it to 73. The nail slips, twirls downward like a falling star. Darkness presses its thumb to your eyelids. Some claim drowning men see their lives reversed. You see a toy boat dissolving into splinters. A current tugs you sideways. Or is that the ocean tilting? Your thumbnail catches on a rope, frayed threads whispering through your grip. 17th century rigging manuals mandated hemp over coconut fiber, tragic oversight. Your last thought's a petty one, should eaten the last mango at dawn. Salt water floods your laugh, bubbles streaming upward like inverted rain. The Galleon settles into its grave, while something rises in you, lighter than hope, quieter than defeat. A final gasp claws at the surface, but the tide's already writing its verdict in vanishing foam. Historians will call this a tragedy, but you felt heavier things than water. The ocean decides. Salt water brushes your ankles now, gentler than the tide that carried your childhood prayers. 17th century plans, etched on palm leaves, spoke of perfect launches. Yet imperfection holds its own mercy, that final spike in your palm, worn smooth by generations, warms as seawater claims it. Barnacles curl like sleeping doves beneath your feet. The mast sways, not in protest, but the slow dance of wood returning to the waves. Your grandfather's gridwork lingers in the grain 9 rows, 8 columns, a lullaby in carpentry. The sea snake glides past, no judge now, just another creature seeking depth. Silt settles around your knees like old blankets. Malay scrolls fray at the edges, as do we all. 3 breaths, not waves, measure time. The hull sighs, releasing its cargo of spices and stories. Coral will cradle those amphorae better than any harbor. Bronze gleams one last time your palm opens. Let traders argue over ghost metal. Let historians chart monsoon winds. Your ledger ends here, ink dissolved into something wider. Silver fish trace your wrists, a farewell flutter. That Ceylonese diver's tale hums in your veins. 300 counts, but numbers blur where light ripples. The hull's groan becomes a hymn. Rotting ginger, rain-soaked earth. Memory melts faster than salt in water. Moonlight folds around you, cool palms on your forehead. Red claws retreat, tides erase omens with ease. Air slips away, no battle left. 73 breaths, 74, who's counting? The nail spirals down, a tiny star swallowed by softer dark. Your eyelids grow heavy, not with brine, but the weight of mango blossoms far inland. Currents rock you, no different than a child's hammock. Frayed ropes brush your cheek, the ocean's whisper, not its roar. 17th century choices matter less now, hemp, coconut fiber. All return to the same stillness. You sink, but isn't sinking just another form of being held? Scholars scribble of loss, but you carry what anchors cannot. Water takes and reshapes. Bubbles rise like fireflies toward the surface. Let them. The foam's verdict is gentle, written in a language older than kings, older than empires, older than grief. Sleep follows, not as conqueror, but the tide receding at dawn.